All right, that's going to be the official intro. Yes. Oh, talking to the dog. The official intro for the draft show on Sunday, July 9th, starting at 7 p.m. with Uper and John taking it with a pre-show. So we'll get on more in details on that a little later. I don't know. Uper, I was going to ask you, did you want to go a full hour or do you think just a half hour Sunday?
I think we probably do a whole hour. I'm sure there's plenty of content to talk about, going over the whole season and then maybe a couple minutes on what we think is going to happen in the draft.
Yeah, there's going to be there's going to be, especially because there's going to be a lot of rolling components. And hi, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Motor City Metrics here at TigerMinorLeagueReport.com. I'm Rogelio Casillo. Alongside me is Uper. John should be a few minutes late, and Chris is probably clipping something right now with the minor leagues. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, where we're listening to the podcast. And also we're on the new Blue Sky and Threads. So apparently Elon Musk is upset that one of the Twitter people that he fired went over to Facebook and thus started the template for Threads. Well, again, yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. The whole thing in the last few days has been a frenzy of I've noticed the Twitter followers we've had a really super big increase, and then my personal one for every reason has fallen off a little bit, but I don't know. It's somebody asked us if we're going to stop posting on Twitter. The answer is no until Twitter stops.
Right.
So, but again, it's been such a weird thing now where people can only view certain limits, and it's ridiculous. I don't even understand. I understand it to a certain extent. I do, but I don't like it. So, but
I signed up for Threads, but I haven't spent even 1 minute figuring out how it works yet.
Yo, Walter, good to see you here on the YouTube chat. Stan, Jeremy, Richard, good to see everybody here in the YouTube chat. Yeah, you know what? It's essentially the same thing as posting on Twitter, with the exception of it's easier to thread, I guess. But same thing with Blue Sky. Blue Sky is exactly the same thing as Twitter, and they're just trying to take advantage of Elon Musk's strange new laws to make zero sense. To some people, but I think it's to some who study the economics of it all.
Sure.
A little bit on my engine because I don't care. I care because there's only one goal I have in mind. I think I talked about this on Sunday, and that is to pass the development account, the official team account. That's all I care about right now. If we can do that before Twitter dies, then it'll be awesome. So fingers crossed. So plenty to get to as the Tigers salvage a game series against the A's. I can't believe I said that with a straight face. I don't know what yesterday was. One of the worst games I've seen in a long time. Anybody who's watching us on YouTube, yeah, Twitter does suck. Christopher, who says that in the YouTube chat, absolutely. Twitter's not what it used to be. It's become, yeah. Anyway, I don't know what yesterday was. Well, yesterday was one of the worst games I've seen in a long time. You go out there, and again, some no-name pitcher goes out there and baffles the Tigers, and then what Tuesday's game? Was it Tuesday's game?
Yeah.
No hitter. So it was the 8th inning, correct?
7th or 8th, yeah. It was getting late, you bet.
Ridiculous.
To me, Tuesday's game was the one that really stings. I mean, they pitched so well. They had opportunities to score. They couldn't push one run across the plate at home to win that thing. If you're going to get really upset, that's the one. Like, oh, man, that was like pulling teeth. The one, 12-3 yesterday, they were down 12-0. Sometimes a bad team just gets their ass kicked. That just happens. I was more accepting of that one than losing the heartbreaker on Tuesday.
I think the reason why I was upset about yesterday was the fact that Oakland has come in. Their offense has been playing better. Don't get me wrong, but it is when the Tigers play in Oakland, it's kind of a struggle.
Yeah,
it's not as much comparatively speaking to Anaheim. But whenever the A's come here, I think Stan is correct. They've always, for whatever reason, the A's have always had their number. And I remember at Tiger Stadium, this is like 94, 90, or one of last year's Jose Canseco was there. And we were taunting him so bad, and he ended up doing the behind his back, doing the middle finger to us. But yeah, I mean, you look at that game, you can look at the positives on Tuesday. Taylor Skubal looked pretty good. You got a little scared there for a moment with a hamstring where you thought it was like something else perhaps. Matt Verlaine went 2 for 4. And then Miguel Cabrera's been hitting better as of late. He went 2 for 4 too. But I mean, come on, it's just it was embarrassing. Spencer Torkelson went 0 for 5 just after we posted an article on Tiger Mountain League Report about his power numbers, and yeah, and even like the way he kind of handled the questions, like I'm fine. It's like,
yeah. Well, I think to get to the Torkelson point, I think like consistency is what he's obviously missing, but I think what makes the best players in baseball great is that consistency. Like if Andy Ibanez was a consistent hitter, he'd be one of the best hitters in baseball. It's just about that consistency with a young player like Torkelson, and I think he's going to get there. And I think we've seen some progress. But like to the tough series loss, obviously me and you talked about this. We wanted at least 2 out of 3. The game 1 was very rough, but I think with a team like the Tigers, who we don't really expect them to be in the playoffs. We're not really classifying them as a team that's in win now mode. You kind of just take the positives and the positive development with a Tarek Skubal who made a really good start. Reese Olson, who looked really good out of the bullpen. The Tigers all-star Michael Lorenzen today had a really good start. Tyler Holton threw in 2 scoreless innings again today. So you kind of just look at the positives and take what you can from it. And just look at the overall big picture of things, which is this team isn't competing. And yes, it was a rough. Ooh. Are we back?
Yeah. No, you're cutting out there a little bit.
Okay. But yeah, just taking the positives out of, tough losses, I think is what I was basically taking away.
I think for Torkelson, I hope that he's the kind of guy who doesn't get online at all and read anything. And judging by the fact that he thinks he's doing okay, he probably doesn't get online. That's a good thing because he has reached that point now with fans on Twitter and fans in chat rooms. I remember this clear back to the chat room days. He has reached a point now where he can't make any mistakes because any mistake he makes gets roasted online. A strikeout with nobody on base and 2 out, somebody's calling him a choker or, a bust. If his throw is a little high to somebody, it's the end of the world. And he's kind of reached that critical point where now he has to become the consistent player John is talking about in the eyes of fans, at least a certain segment of fans who's just, for whatever reason, itching to call him a bust. And they almost feel like they revel in it. Because right now, every mistake is just amplified via Twitter far more than a normal second-year guy.
So, real quick about the A's, there's a stat I found here. Since the A's relocated to Oakland in ahead of the 1968 season, they have faced the Tigers 534 times, and they have an overall record of 283 and 251 against them. They have not lost a season series against them since 2016.
Wow.
In fact, and Walter was close. Oakland, after today, is 31-6 the past 6 seasons worth of games versus the Tigers.
Ooh.
And they've only lost more than 1 game to Detroit in a single campaign just once in that span.
Wow, that's something. Yeah. I was thinking when you were talking about how they've had the Tigers number, do you remember that series? I believe it was 2013. I was pretty sure it was Torrey Hunter's first year. When they came into Detroit for a 4-game series, and the Tigers had, I believe it was Verlander, Scherzer, and Sanchez all lined up, and the A's weren't playing that well, and the Tigers needed to kind of kick it in gear a little bit. And the A's just kicked the snot out of them for 3 nights. But then on that Thursday, it looked like Detroit was going down again, and that's when they had that big rally with the Torrey Hunter homer in the 9th. Do you remember that game?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I'm trying to remember.
It would be like August of 13.
Yeah.
That was the A's coming in and kicking the Tigers in the teeth when the Tigers were a much better team and they had all their pitchers lined up. And if it wasn't for Hunter's heroics at the end there, that was a 4-game sweep at the hands of the A's.
That's right, because it was the night before the Tigers got absolutely shelled with Doug Fister on the mound. I think he allowed like 10 run. I know it was just a lopsided score, and then they had to come back and win 7-6. That was the final score of that game.
I think they were down 6-1.
Yeah, that was a game where it's always one of those things where I was thinking about this during the Jim Leland era, where August and September, for whatever reason, the Tigers always had a couple of weeks where they just struggled, and it fell right in line to what we're accustomed to with Jim Leland at the helm. But yeah, I mean, I mean, John and I differ when it comes to positives. I think that I look at things positively as much as I can. I mean, you have a positive that Jake Marisnick has made his case to stay on the roster. I mean, there's going to be some big roster decisions come tomorrow. Akil Badu's scheduled to come back. You have Riley Green's going to have to come back. And I believe, who am I missing? Will Brisky, I believe, is coming back at some point too. Sure. So they have to make some decisions on the roster-wise.
Faedo?
And Faedo, yeah. Faedo starting tomorrow against Alex Maloa, which I'm surprised we see him back here so soon after he went down the complex league. I thought he'd be down there for at least a little while, but apparently they fixed whatever was going on with him. So,
well, he struck out 10 in AA, I think, earlier this week on Sunday or something, Saturday or Sunday. He still walked a few guys though, because he couldn't throw a strike when he was in Toronto. I watched him walk 7 guys one night. And he still walked 3 in that AA game. So I don't know if he's fixed yet, but they probably figured the Tigers' offense might be a good a good tonic for him.
Yeah, especially because they have the automated strike zone down in AA right now, so that could have been down there. So all right. So Devin and Logue was sent down for Faedo and Badu. Okay, that makes I mean, Logue, after I think he got roughed up yesterday, I didn't think he would stick around, and Nevin the same thing. Tyler Nevin is what he is, and he's just he's a 4A player at best. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, it's one of those things too where you look at this lineup, even with Marisnick possibly sticking around, or however they're going to stay. If he decides to come back to AAA, then Tigers might be in business for that. But the Yankees did pick up, by the way, the lefty Anthony.
Oh, he's from Anchor Bay. I know that.
Yeah.
I don't notice it.
Mizowitz or something?
Yeah. The Yankees picked him up off waivers today. So if I see something a month from now where the Yankees figured out how to unharness his arm, I'm just going to shake my head in shame. But speaking of shaking my head in shame, though, Dave Myers, former Tiger prospect who was waived at the end of the season, got his first call up to Miami, and ironically enough, replaced a former Tiger. Well, I mean, I don't know if he was a Tiger or not necessarily, but a AAA former Mud Hen, Jonathan
Davis.
Yeah, Jonathan Davis. And I got his first major league hit and everything. And so one of the things I wanted to go, and this is kind of the segues right into my inside numbers. All right, I took it out of loop there. My bad. So my insider number is something that I was noticing. His walk rate has been increased. It's in like 9 to 10%. So my insider number is 6.4, and that is the walk rate that in 6.4 and 0.200 or 0.208. Okay. That is the ISO of Dave Myers from June or July 4th to the end of the season. And then the number, the 6.4 number is the walk rate. So to put it into context, guys, he started the season around, his ISO was around 117, or 171, which isn't bad. Or I'm sorry, a little lower than that. It was like a 157, something to that effect. His walk rate was at 3%. He doubled his walk rate in the second half of the season. His ISO numbers were getting better. So to sit here, and if you look at it closely, and his strikeout rate was the same, 27%. So to me, it's saying, okay, you see his ISO numbers. His WRC plus went from 101 to 128 in the second half. If I'm looking at those numbers at the end of the year, I see improvement. I would like to keep him around instead of, I don't know, signing Steele Walker. I just, there's certain things there, Uper, that I'm just kind of, and John, I look at the numbers and go, well, wait a minute. Dave Myers should have been he would have been serviceable in AAA.
Yeah. I at the end of last season, he was on my list of someone I was kind of hoping they'd keep around.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Was I leading a campaign for it? Not really, but I just thought that he was still so new to professional hitting and showing improvement that he was worth keeping around. But again, a problem with that is he got kind of caught up in the switch of regimes. He wasn't a Scott Harris guy. What does Harris care about him? So that probably played to his disadvantage, but maybe it is to his advantage because he's sitting in the major leagues right now.
Here's the numbers I put in there. So that's his walk rate first half of the season. I put it in the chat. So it is mind-boggling to me. And if he's not a Harris guy, I get it to a certain extent, but he also had 20 steals last year.
Yeah.
And he was very athletic. I think it was I talked about this on the minor league podcast. He just literally sat around for West Michigan, been shuttled back and forth between West Michigan and Erie for a while, where he was destined to be quote unquote an org guy. But props to Dave Myers. I really, really applaud the kid for sticking to it. And his mother, 100%. By the way, his mother was a big fan of our stuff. And anyway, that was my insider number. John, what is your insider number?
Yeah, so I just want to highlight a player I think that deserves a lot of recognition, and that is Tyler Holton. And my inside the number is 1.93. That is his ERA on the year. And I was very surprised to find out he's actually a rookie. This is Tyler Holton's rookie season. I believe he's 26, 27 years old. And just an incredible pickup for Scott Harris, and was kind of the replacement for Andrew Chafin per se. And just looking at some of his numbers, he is 27 years old, 46 and 2/3 innings pitched, has really been a workhorse for the Detroit Tigers. I just think he deserves a lot of recognition, not only for Rookie of the Year, but you could make a case he deserved to be the Tigers All-Star heading to Seattle this year. And just a really, really good thing to see, and it gives you faith in Scott Harris moving forward. And maybe fans should start to pay a little more attention when we see these waiver wire pickups or these no-name guys that we kind of don't really bat an eye at. Well, we didn't really bat an eye when the Tigers picked up Tyler Holton this offseason, and he's been arguably our best reliever. So, 1.93 ERA for Tyler Holton. Really, really good to see for the Tigers bullpen.
Yeah, you know what, Stan, you remind me, it was a Rule 5 pick. I would have sworn he was picked off waivers, though, or maybe they agreed.
Minor league Rule 5?
Yeah, I thought, you know what? Yeah, there was a rule. I was going back and forth with Chris about this. I would have sworn it was a Rule 5 thing.
Well, there's a AAA Rule 5 draft too, right?
Yeah. So, in that case, then that makes a lot more sense because on the transaction wire, it has him as he was picked up off waiver wire.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I thought that. But then, it makes a lot of sense. I remember now exactly because we were talking about this in December. So I'm wrong about that. But I looked at the transaction sheet instead of just digging deeper on that. But thank you, Stan. Yes, I should have just went back. If you go, it's I'll show you how I got that information. But John, what is your insider number while I look for my Dean Meyer?
Okay, my first one is the number 1, as in 1, and the second number is 15,747,200. Okay, what are those numbers? The 1 stands for first place, as in most. The second number, the 15 million plus number, is the bonus pool allotted to your Detroit Tigers for this upcoming draft. So what that means for people who don't follow it is the top 10 picks in the first 10 rounds for the Tigers will be 11 picks. They have a bonus of 15,747,000 plus to offer them. Those 11 players, they can go 5% over with no penalty. So whatever that 5% is, add that on. So the Tigers have about a $1.2 million advantage on the next highest team in bonus pool coming on the draft on Sunday. So they really should have the ability to toss a lot of balls up in the air and make some things happen. If they can find a way to get a little under slot with the third pick, not even a lot, but then also play around, under slot in picks 2 and 3, they might be able to really land some good prep guys in that 4th, 5th, 6th round and make this a very deep draft for them. It seems like a deep draft. with college hitters. I'm hopeful that they kind of stay there the first 3 picks or so. But if they can save some cash as they're doing it, I think they can load up on some prep players in the 4th and 5th and 6th rounds and really make this a lot of pretty exciting. So it's nice that they have the highest bonus pool. Now they just got to make it work.
And hopefully they were able to. So, by the way, this is why I wanted to pull this up. So I said to claim off waivers from Erie. Usually, I'm not sure why it said that versus not the Rule 5 thing. But, all right. I just want to make sure that people know that I did my homework as much as I could because anyway. No, and they have to be wise with this, especially when they pick at number 37. And I'm interested to see where the Tigers will go with that one. If they go pitching or they'll continue to go with the hitter. And I agree with you, Uber. They should go with the college bat. It makes a lot of sense. So Stan in our YouTube chat gave us an inside number. His number is -1. The amount of walks Eric Haase has gotten in 71 at bats since June 1st, and 183. Eric Haase's batting average since June 1st, 2023. That right there deserves this.
Exquisite.
Nice job, Stan. That's a good inside number there. That's and the Tigers really don't have something about the trade deadline tells me that they might get a catcher who is serviceable, perhaps, because I think if they're going to make moves, whether they trade Lorenzen or whatever they decide to do, I think getting a catcher has now taken importance. I mean, Jake Rogers is home runs, does his thing, and is good defensively, but if you one walk and 71 at bats, that's Harold Castro bad.
Yeah, that's.
Really hitting Harold aside. I mean, it just reminded me of last year. Had that vibe of last year where no one's getting walk. If you can't walk, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't. He can't control the strike zone. It's against the Harris philosophy.
Now you've been to a couple Toledo games, correct?
Yes.
Tell me about. I mean, is there any way Michael Papirski is at least Grayson Greiner? Can you do that? Probably not.
Probably not. The thing is, though, the reason why I look at it like I look at if you look at some of the advanced numbers on who's a batted ball, Donnie Sands. I'll give you an example. Donnie Sands barely hits it over 85 miles. In terms of like exit velocity.
He did homer today, though, I believe.
He did homer, yes, but I'm talking about the average. No. So his average exit velocity, by the way, because we have this in our data sheets, is 86.6. Doesn't make a lot of hard contact, and he's only had 3 barrels on the year. Now, if you're talking about Michael Poparski, his exit velocity is 83.2. So I look, if you're gonna do something serviceable, then I would go with Andrew Knapp. Andrew Knapp has he has one of the better average exit velocities on a team, 89.4. He's got 4 barrels. He's got a hard hit rate of 41.8. So that'll play. And he actually doesn't play a bad first base either. I will say that. He doesn't play, he's serviceable at first base. He's not gonna embarrass you or anything like that. So if you're talking about from a sense of to be serviceable backup, I think Andrew Knapp would be the best case scenario. Now, Dingler, again, in Erie, defensively is far superior, but again, cannot hit advanced spin. And he has to get better on that before he even gets considered for a call-up. So I think I would love to say that Dingler is ready, but unfortunately he's not. And he is a big reason why Erie's doing well, because he is he can command a good pitching staff. I will say that he's a really good catcher, but again, when we can't hit offensive or you can't hit consistently, it's gonna play into whether you get a call up or not. But other than that, like in terms of catchers, I was thinking of another one too. I felt like Toledo, like the way they've been interchanging the 3 catchers too, it's been so strange to me. But no, Knapp has power, and Knapp has like I believe. Yeah, didn't he have a cup of coffee with the Dodgers? I want to say, or I don't know. I can't remember what team
Philly. He was on the Phillies.
He was on the Phillies. Okay, so out of the 3, he's the one with the major league experience. So Poparski too played with the Reds. Forgot about that as well, but still, yeah.
Well, Haase better watch out. I mean, I had him down. Oh, maybe I'll talk about something else. But I was going to talk about Haase tonight on the bad.
Yeah.
It's getting to the point now where, you can say, well, he's had these hot streaks in the past. They're waiting for that. Well, you can't wait forever. I mean, he's 30 years old. He might just have reached that point where the bat slowed down. Not every guy gets past the age of 30 and everything stays the way it was when they were 26, 27. Some people lose just a little bit as they when the clock hits 30, and he might be one.
Yeah, and that was my ugly too, so I'll probably have to find something else. But I think at least we have Jake Rogers, and Jake Rogers has earned that starting spot. And I think Eric Haase isn't keeping this team from contention. He isn't holding this team back from anything. So unless there realistically is a better option, and you can 100% say this is a better option, I think he's probably just going to stick around, and maybe he finds another hot streak. But I think the Tigers are probably content with giving Jake Rogers most of the at-bats at catcher. And if there's a catcher outside the organization that they can find via trade or pick up via waivers, I think they'll look at that. But like I said, I don't think Eric Haase is necessarily hurting this team in any way because he's a backup catcher at the end of the day.
Yeah, Deadly Ninja B says that Haase is Joaquin Phoenix from Signs. He just has to swing. That's a nice, good reference there. By the way, Tyler Holton in the month of June, just to put in the context in his last month since June 4th, 16 innings, 3 earned runs. He's allowed just 1 home run, 7 walks, 19 strikeouts. He's got a K per 9 of 10.47. So, and you're wondering about his FIP, 3.05, but in ERA, his XFIP is 2.93. So he's living up to, or he's doing exactly a little bit more in the side numbers on that, a little bit on what John was talking about earlier. But yeah, Eric Haase, as a local hero as he is, especially where I live in Dearborn, I want him to succeed. I want him to. I think he would continue to be a great story, but it's some point. You're right. John's right. The expectation is not there for production, but at some point you have to consider something. You have to consider making a change at some point. But if the Tigers are not going to do that, which I don't think the Tigers are. I think it's kind of wait and see what they're going to do. And I don't know. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks here or so as we approach the trade deadline. So let's go into our next topic, and that is the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, Uper, if you want to change yours on the fly, like you mentioned, that's fine. So,
okay. Well, my good was we already mentioned a little bit tonight, but I want to talk about it. Jake Marisnick. I think almost everybody has a soft spot for the veteran guy who's kind of trying to hang on for the proverbial one more summer in the sun, right, in baseball. He's done a serviceable job. He's obviously an excellent defender, made some really nice plays out there, showed some power this week that he hasn't shown up till now, but it was fun to see. The homer, the double. He took that high pitch for a home run today. That was really impressive. I didn't think he could handle something like that up in the zone like that, but he drove it out. It was pretty cool. I hope he sticks around. I think that once Baddoo, though, and Green come back, he's going to be in a numbers crunch. I mean, they got to play Carpenter, and they got to play Vierling. He's been pretty much, I don't know if he's been their best player, but he's been one of their 3 best players for the last few weeks. And then McKinstry and Ibanez can both play in the outfield. So you kind of struggle to see, even if they kept him around, when's he going to play? So I have a feeling he might be the guy that goes over Scope, although I'm certainly willing to sign on to the end of the Jonathan Scope era. The money's sunk. They might as well move on and do something else. But I guess from a win-loss perspective, whether you got Marisnick or Scope, it may not be that big of a deal. But just kudos to Jake Marisnick. Kept the career going. May even have played well enough where he could latch on in a bench role for somebody else. My bad, we'll stick with Eric Haase. I think that, yes, at this trade deadline, there's no question they should be able, if they want to find someone. There are third string catchers rolling around by the side of the road. You should be able to pick one up anytime you want, right? The sign on says "Take me." Okay, there are catchers out there. How much do they believe Eric Haase's struggles are something they can fix, or do they think he's toast? I've been watching enough now, in my mind, I kind of think he's toast. I mean, he's just not hitting the ball hard. As you say, he's not walking. There's not a lot of productivity there. He hit a couple balls hard a couple weeks ago. I think, well, maybe he's starting to come around, but I don't know. I was listening to Simo today. He was talking about how he thinks that Haase is in his own mind too much, that he's trying to change approach to an opposite field, place the ball hitter, where Haase should be a do damage guy, quote unquote, do damage guy. That was Simo's word for it. I don't know how much damage he can do, but he has done some damage in the past. And I think Monroe might be right there. I think he should be a guy who is just attacking always and looking to hit bombs. Instead of, he might be in his own head trying to become Tony Gwynn, and he's not. So we'll see what they do with Haase. It's not the biggest story in the world for this team going forward, but I think it's one worth watching. And then I have the good, the bad, and this is the finally. My vacation starts tomorrow. So we are heading to northern Wisconsin for one night, and then we're heading to a house on Lake Superior for 7 nights. We have a lot of plans, including hikes and boats and kayaks and a few other things. Should be a good time. I've heard that the weather in the UP is going to be sunny, but a little chilly, about 68, 67 degrees, somewhere in there. But I think it's going to be kind of nice. Always looking forward to getting home and eating a pasty and drinking a local beer and maybe running into a few folks I know. So there you go.
That's it. You know what? I'm jealous because I went away for a couple days in Oscoda. That was my quote unquote vacation. It's probably going to be the only vacation I get for a while. I'm going to South Bend. Actually, in 2 weeks, Chris and I are heading down to South Bend to hang out with a fellow Discord member who's inviting us to South Bend Cubs versus the West Michigan Whitecaps game.
Nice.
I think we're staying there Friday and Saturday. I'm not 100% about that yet. And then we're going to Erie at the end of the month. We're going to hit the road pretty hard.
Cool.
Towards the end of the year. So that's my quote unquote vacation time coming up. And then I'm supposed to go to Denver in August for work. So the day job. We'll see. It's still up in the air. But I know for a fact that I am going to Seattle in February, which is I'm looking forward to that. That's gonna be
Seattle's a fun town. My big thing is I'm hopeful that we get some nice weather. That I love sitting by the water. Our house is right on the water in the morning before everybody else is up. Just after the sun has been up. That is the best time to be by Lake Superior. Nothing's moving with a real hot coffee. And I hope to do that at least, hopefully, 5 or 6 of the 7 days we're there.
Sounds like a perfect Sunday kind of scenario.
Yes.
John, what is your inside number? Or excuse me, good, the bad, the ugly.
So I'm gonna steal Youpers finally because that sparked an idea. But I just wanted to say is we learned so much about each other in these podcasts. Raj, I've actually been going up north to Escoda my entire life. So that's funny that you were there. We might have ran into each other once upon a time because I've literally gone there every single summer my entire life.
I went to one of those cottages they have. I forgot the name of the resort. One of those resorts off there, but it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that was funny you said that. But all right, good, bad, and the finally because Youper, I like that idea. Good, Philadelphia Phillies, most overlooked, underrated team in baseball. I think they are a top 5 team in baseball. They made it to the World Series last year, and guess what? I think they're better than they were last year. The Phillies, I think the injuries kind of play a role in them getting overlooked. I think also being in the same division as the Braves, they get overlooked a bit as well. But there's one thing we know about the Phillies. Dave Dombrowski is going to make moves to make this team better. He's going to be active at the trade deadline. And at the end of the day, if they get into the playoffs, they're going to have Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Taijuan Walker starting in those 3 playoff games. And we know that offense can get going and it can be on absolute fire with Castellanos, Harper, Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, Bryson Stott.
Schwarber.
Yeah, Schwarber. I mean, they're absolutely loaded. I think they are the dark horse in the National League, and they're playing better as of late. And I think they're really going to pick it up as the season goes along. My bad is that
just to break in real quick. I've seen Taijuan Walker pitch a couple times lately. The guy is looking good. I mean, really good. Dark horse. I won't say it, but he's looked good. Put it that way. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. But they're a fun team to watch, and I think they're definitely a little overlooked. My bad is the Angels. I think the walls may be closing in on the Los Angeles Angels a little bit. I don't know if you guys saw on, I think it was First Take, Stephen A. was addressing Shohei Ohtani, and he basically said, like, nobody cares about the Angels. Now, I'm not going to take Stephen A. Smith's opinion on baseball too seriously. But, like, the Angels, they're struggling right now. They're only a game over 500. They're fighting for third place in that division. They got the Rangers and the Astros above them. We know the AL East has a lot of teams competing. A playoff berth for them, I'm not going to say it's out of reach, but it's going to be an uphill battle. And now with all the injuries they have, with Mike Trout, Brandon Drury's injured, Jared Walsh got injured, it's going to be an uphill battle for them, and it really makes you wonder if they go on a skid like they did last year. I mean, last year they lost 13 games in a row. I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, but if they have a really bad month of July, they got to look in the mirror and make the decision. Is Shohei Ohtani a realistic possibility for us to re-sign this offseason, or do we trade him? And there's Stephen A. Smith. Do we trade Shohei Ohtani to kind of reboot our farm system and reboot our future, or do they continue to go for it? But I would be a little worried if I'm an Angels fan right now, because I think there's a lot of pressure on them, especially with the injuries now. Not good to see for them. And then finally, I didn't get to mention this on the last podcast, but Pistons territory is now on the Motor City Metrics channel. So if anybody is a Pistons fan, thank you. If anybody is a Pistons fan or enjoys Pistons content, the podcast will be every Tuesday night on the Motor City Metrics channel. We will also have clips up during the week as well. So it'll be me, Mateo, Parker, and RJ, just a couple of guys I've met on social media that just love to talk Pistons. So yes, Pistons content is finally on the channel. Nice. A lot of great stuff coming. We think this channel has a really bright future. And finally we got some Pistons content for you guys.
Yeah, so that's going to be one of the things that I can go into a little bit more, but I'm having too much fun having this next to John.
How did you get that up so quick, man?
Dude, I'm telling you, when I'm determined, I do something really quick. No, but there's so Motor City, our channel is going to be called the Motor City Metrics Podcast Network. So we're going to be having different shows on there. So it's going to be Pistons, like John was talking about his show. We're looking for other types of shows. So Lions, Red Wings, you name it. And even pop culture, because quite frankly, I miss talking pop culture. If there's any opportunity, case in point in my hat, I'll talk. It's actually, you know what's funny is I'm not really in the horror movies, but I'm in the Friday the 13th. But anyway, so yeah, more on that. The channel is going to be changing, evolving, and it's going to be part of getting really just different types of content as the offseason wears on. And so John's doing a good job with the Pistons territory. And we have a lot of friends that are within former friends, or not former friends, rather, but people used to work with at Woodward. I love to talk to, and hopefully we'll have them on the channel at some point, guests and stuff like that. Like, shout out to Mike over at Woodward Sports, who's a review reporter. I miss that guy. Miss him every day. Miss a lot of those guys over there. But anywho, all right. So it's funny you mentioned the Angels, because that's going to be part of my bad too, but in a second. But my good is two things. One is Jose Cisnero. Cisnero has been, in terms of, so ever since kind of rough May a little bit, since June 3rd to just recently, he has been, there's Chris Brown. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
Sometimes life calls, right?
No. Yeah, Chris, we'll have you do your segments here in a second, but I was trying to going into Jose Cisneros, he's part of my good. 12.2 or 12 and 2/3 innings, 6 hits, just 1 earned run, 16 strikeouts, an ERA of 0.71, and a FIP of 1.95 and holding batters to. But what's important here, he's throwing strikes, 67% strike throwing. That will do, and that will do pretty well. And that's why even despite the fact that the Tigers had the second most used bullpen next to the Giants in the month of June, Cisneros is probably a big reason why the Tigers were able to float through there. And part of my also good was the Miami Marlins in the month of June, because the Miami Marlins are an embarrassment of riches of pitchers. As John has talked about this, the team in general, but I that starting staff in the month of June put up a 4.2 WAR and a FIP of 2.94. Just it's ridiculous. You're talking about a team that in a very competitive division, and I'm not sure why the GM's not getting more hype surrounded around her. Kim, yeah, she should be. They'd be able to flip over wire, like just some of the waiver wire pickups they've been able to do, and just some of the trades that turned into. Look at Lazaro. I mean, in the month of June, he had a K.9 or 10.60, but he's just been money. I mean, Perez is just one of their guys from their system, but Braxton Garrett, even with Sandy Alcantara struggling a little bit, his K per 9 is down quite a bit. They're still able to get some solid pitching, and so yeah, I couldn't ignore Miami as that being part of that. So my bad is the injury bug, and that's involving Mike Trout, he left the game earlier with a wrist injury, and so did Anthony Rondon. It's just as John was saying earlier, it's just it can't buy a bucket. But then again, the Moreno is a really, really bad owner. So yeah, Kim, yeah, there's, you know what, Noah, there's validity. And so he was saying that Kim's really bad at drafting. So that's where the okay.
Max Meyer.
Well, I mean, how many drafts has she been in charge of? Wasn't she the GM for 2 years now?
Yeah, only one, technically one, right?
Let's say she was hired in 2020, November 2020. So she's overseeing the 2021 and 2022 drafts. Now, Jacob Berry, first round pick, did not look good. I'm trying to remember who they took in 21.
Wasn't it
Khalil Watson and Joe Mack? I think. Does that sound
Watson,
right?
Yeah, Watson's off to a
So far, not great. But they did take Brady Allen, I think, and he's done with the Tigers.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, the ugly. Somebody mentioned the Cardinals pitcher. We'll probably get to that too. But the injuries. So Mike Trout leaves the game with a wrist injury, and then Jose Altuve back on the IL with a left oblique, and those are two for the Astros. Kind of a big blow for him because they're trying to stay ahead a little bit. But he was just spent all this time rehabbing, and he's back on in the IL. So. And my ugly, we'll get to the Cardinals pitching, but also it's a gentleman by the name of, he's the 18th player disciplined in the domestic violence policy, and that is one Jimmy Cordeo, who's been suspended for the rest of the season. You'll miss the last 76 games. You'll lose $309,000 in pay because he's making only league minimum. And he was 3-2 with the ERA of 3.86 and spent last year with the White Sox. So the reason why it's ugly is just because domestic violence, no matter what it is, sucks. So again, I don't know. I don't know. But the Cardinals pitching. So how ugly was the Cardinals pitching? Well, let's look at this real quick here. Are you talking about let's talk about the relievers, or are you talking about the starters? Let's see. We'll pick your poison, really. The Cardinals bullpen in the month of June. Let's see here. Okay, so the month of their bullpen had a spot in the area of 5.20 and had a negative WAR -0.1. So that is that's bad and that's ugly. And thank you to Blood Right for the $5 in our super chat.
Exquisite.
By the way, next week, we're going to be rolling out a new super chat feature where it doesn't go to YouTube. The money goes right to us. So I'm working out the fine tuning right now. So, anyway. So that's where if you're making your case there for the bad, for that, or for the ugly, 5.20. Only worse was the Rockies, 6.0 ERA in the month of June. So,
yeah, I mean, a question I just thought of was Jack Flaherty. He'll be a free agent after this year. I wonder how inclined the Cardinals would be to move him, obviously with them being out of it in the race for the NL Central.
He hasn't been great this year. I think his ERA is up around 4.85 or something like that. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting how much the Cardinals, what's their capacity for throwing in the towel, since they haven't really done that in the last 20 years or so. But boy, seeing them, they were down 5-0, came all the way back to take the lead against the Marlins the other day, and then lost on a throwing error by the pitcher. It was karma for 2006. Damn it. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see who does end up being sellers this year. It sure seems like the White Sox are going to sell and the Cardinals are going to sell theoretically. I just don't know if they have it in them. One thing I wanted to touch on, Roger, about the Marlins pitching. When I was getting ready for my segments tonight, I was looking up, who the best pitcher in the American League has been over the last, or actually in all of baseball has been over the last month?
Who's that?
Pablo
Lopez.
Pablo Lopez.
Who is no longer, they don't even need him.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So, and I Stephen A is kind of distracting me here. I don't know what's happening there, but.
No, so he was talking about Stephen A. Smith earlier, and I just couldn't help it. And I just went, I've been kind of, I was wondering what would happen if we put it next to him, and end up coming right next to him. Face.
Well,
so
ESPN's been laying everybody off, so we can bring Stephen A. in.
Well, yeah, it's kind of wild, that there are a lot of Jalen Rose is gone, Susie Colbert, a lot of people. But I did, Bloodright did ask, what would it take to get Andrew Painter from the Phillies? He said, Dombrowski's itching to get rid of him. Yeah. Dombrowski might be, but I don't think the Tigers have what it would take to get him. This was a top 20 overall prospect heading into the season. He had some arm trouble, which is always concerning, but I think the Phillies would rather just have him come in.
Yeah.
He might even be pitching out of the bullpen for him down the stretch or something like that, but we'll see.
Yeah, honestly, if I know I remember he started off the spring training really on a hot streak, and he was the talk of town for the first 2 weeks, or down in Florida, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's been unfortunate for him. But yeah, if he can come back and be even remotely close to what he was doing in spring training, that would help Philly. But I don't know if it'd be enough to. I think the Marlins. I don't know. I think the Marlins. There's a legitimacy to the Marlins to him a little bit. I don't know. I can't. We'll see. So I mean, and you know what? What's really nice is that Dave Dombrowski's joined us on the side of the podcast here next to John. So we'll keep Dave Dombrowski there.
Okay,
there you go.
Yeah, so
he's about to trade John. That's unfortunate, John is.
We're going to a Marlins podcast. Sorry.
Marlins podcast. Oh, no.
All right. So, Chris, what is your inside number? And then get to your good and bad, the ugly.
Mine was kind of lame this week, but I went with 9.71. That is in millions of dollars, the slot value for the first overall pick this year, which reportedly Dylan Cruz wants the full slot there, which would shatter the record that Spencer Torkelson currently holds for the slotting system era, which is 8.4. I don't know if Cruz is actually going to get that from anyone, but it sounds like the Pirates are not willing to do that. But the Tigers actually can do it. I'd prefer that they not. I'd like them to keep it around 9 million or 8.5. But the Tigers, if they were to give Dylan Cruz that 9.71 million, they would then have to cut about $600,000 from the rest of their draft picks to get in under the 5% overage, which they could do pretty easily. The only thing, it would be kind of a bummer because it would probably prevent them from going big on another player with their second or third pick. And they could probably still do it if they didn't take several seniors. But if you took a senior sign, maybe not a Josh Rivera, who is kind of a high value senior sign, but somebody later with the third pick, they could save $600,000 easy. So that is to say that all the winds seem to be blowing the way of Dylan Cruz to the Tigers lately, and they can do it basically no matter what. So if they want to, there you go.
Do you think that if he's the third overall pick, do you think he has the juice to demand it? Where's he going to go?
Well, so that's the thing. So the Rangers almost certainly can't do it because the Rangers don't have another pick until the 4th round. Their total bonus pool is like $10 million.
Yeah.
But the next several teams possibly could. The Twins, the A's, the Reds, and even maybe the Mariners, because the Mariners got that 29th overall pick for playing Julio Rodriguez last year and him winning Rookie of the Year. It's the prospect performance indicator, I forgot what it is, PPI, which is 20%, I believe. No, that's a home loan or something. But yeah, he'd be pushing it if he really demanded 9-7 or whatever. I think the Tigers could probably get him for 9, like I said, maybe even less. And 9 would be fine. Again, that would get them under the their overage, and they could still cut 600,000 or more on some of the later picks and get another interesting player or two. So that's kind of the dream scenario here. It's weird because I kind of like Langford more than Cruz, but it's like hard to complain about Cruz when you watch him play. Like just about everything he does is really good. So yeah. I'm not going to be too upset if they get him at 3.
So by the way, we do have a poll going. You can't see it on our side, but if you go to our YouTube, if you're in our YouTube chat right now, you can see the poll. And I put in there, who would you want the Tigers pick at number 3, Langford or Cruz, or I put Clark. No one's voted for Clark. Not a single person, and 8 votes so far. So if you want to have your vote, go ahead and vote right now. And Langford is in the lead right now. And we'll go back to that in a second. But I just realized I could have used the survey feature a long time ago, and for whatever reason, because it's not available in StreamYard, but it's available on YouTube. So I just went to YouTube and said, screw it. So
no Paul Skeens though.
It sounds like Paul Skeens is going to the Nats no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if there's a curveball in there and Langford and Cruz go 1-2, then it does really sound like the Tigers are going to do that Teal save money and they just don't seem to believe in taking pitching that high, which we've talked about. Is if you're going to have a philosophy, then I guess you got to stick with it. But sometimes you do need to make exceptions, and that's one thing that I've been curious about with Scott Harris's regime so far is he seems to have plans for everything. And this is just me, kind of speculating, but I'm not sure how well he adjusts on the fly. I've been theorizing that, he's got plans to bring up the young guys at a certain point, and no matter how well they do, it just doesn't matter. They were earmarking plate appearances for the young players. Well, it's probably in his mind like 30% of the season or 20% of the season or something like that. And, Colt Keith is going to hit 400 in AAA until such time as they reach that threshold. But I don't know. Maybe that'll work in the draft too. Maybe they'll just go, whatever, take Skeens. We'll see. But I think everybody seems to agree that Skeens is going to the Nats at 2.
I think there's some validity to that, Chris, in terms of like making sure he's a very numbers oriented guy. And so I think if it doesn't fit a spreadsheet, I don't want to say spreadsheet. I'm trying to not be so broad when I explain that, but just hearing what I'm hearing, it sounds like there is a very rigid process when it comes to this. And so, but the fact is, it is still strange that, and it's something that I was talking to somebody about this today. They don't have a GM yet. And I'm just wondering, who does he bounce ideas off of? You don't really hear him talking about, is he talking about Metzer every day? Who is he talking to? Like, is the army of khaki guys? I saw a guy in khaki pants down in Lakeland, because I kid you not, like there was, mind you, that was my first spring training, but from what the beat writers were telling me, they'd never seen so many new faces, but all of them were in polos and khakis, and their polos were neatly tucked in, which as a chubby guy, I'm like, I don't do that, but whatever. It's anyway. So
he said the other night that they're up late a lot. They're in a crowded room talking about everybody. So he's talking to somebody, and
I would assume Sartori and Menzin are still in there doing their thing. And supposedly they moved the draft war room to Detroit this year from Lakeland, so maybe we can sneak in there over this weekend.
Yeah, we'll be there. Yeah, we'll be there tomorrow and Saturday. Or tomorrow, tomorrow for sure.
John, sometimes we got to sacrifice people. We're going to use you as a distraction.
Okay.
You're gonna pretend you're choking in the concourse. Okay, all the security is gonna come around you, and Raj and Chris are gonna sneak into that room and see what that board looks like.
All right.
By the way,
I'm
speaking
down.
of who's come into town, by the way, Greg Gagne, the voice of the Erie Seagulls, will be calling the games all weekend. Dan Dickerson made an announcement on that earlier on Twitter. So congratulations to Greg. And we'll be hopefully we're supposed to get some tacos this weekend. So hopefully sticks with it. Outstanding. So all right. But by the way, the poll wise, Langford is up 67% to 33%. I'm going to end the poll right now. So
I did want to hit Deadly Ninja Bees with 3 quality comments in a row in there. One was that only Kendrick Perkins remained at ESPN, which is funny because he's kind of a joke. And he said, "I hated when the Pistons went teal. Tigers, please don't make the same mistake." Quality. Although the kids these days, they like that teal. It's kind of funny how things go. The circular. It was a horrible time in our lives for people who lived through that era. That's like the tiger crawling through the D on the hat coincided with like 6 of the 8 worst pitching seasons in Tigers history. But with time, was it tragedy plus time equals comedy or something like that? I guess it also equals cool. But anyway, Deadly Ninja Beast also had a legit question. He said, "How different are Dylan Cruz and Wyatt Langford?" And they are awfully similar. I think the general consensus is that Langford is actually probably a more explosive athlete, like a little faster, and probably will hit for a little bit more power. But Cruz is the better pure hitter. Lots just consistent, really hard contact all the time. And Cruz is currently the better defensive player in the outfield. So it's really, really close. I don't think you can go wrong either way.
No.
There's Kendrick Perkins over my shoulder. I get it.
Yeah, the Kendrick Perkins mask too. It's even creepier.
It reminds me of the old ceiling cat issue.
I got to be honest.
Perkins, why can't you jerking? Sorry.
Before you got here, Chris, I was talking about the Tigers having the number 1 bonus pool, most money by a lot, by $1.2 million over the second place. So,
well, they have less than you say the Pirates or the Tigers?
The Tigers have the highest bonus pool.
No, the Pirates still have a higher bonus pool. The Tigers are second.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I got bad information from Jim Callis. Jim Callis.
Well,
Callis is a friend of the show.
Well,
yeah.
I thought though, since they got the 29th or the pick number 37 added, they went above.
But they do. But the Pirates also have, I think, like pick 40 and then like 47 or something like that. I'm looking right now. Let's see the bonus pools this year. Pirates are at 16.185 and the Tigers are at 15.7.
Yeah, I had the 15.7 right. Well, but regardless, they're in the top 2. Fine.
Yeah.
At number 3, I just think they can still take the most talented player, and they should still be able to massage that large of a pool to get better players in the next couple picks. I don't think they need to sacrifice, a talent level at 3 to then really get creative later on. I just don't see that as being necessary. And usually I'm all about paying less and getting more guys later. That's great. But I think when you have 3 college guys at this level who are legitimately above the top of the draft and you are guaranteed one of them, I think you got to walk away with one.
Go ahead, Chris.
I would say I agree completely. Like this is the sort of draft where you don't really need to mess around with that, right? Like in other years, maybe there wasn't a clear number 3 or a clear top 5 or whatever. But this is one of those years where you take the guy who's there, and you, like you said, you can massage it any way you want later. Take any number of Austin Murs later in the draft and or the top 10, and you're going to save some money and you'll have some talent.
This is the way I look at it. Do not do what the Detroit Lions used to do in drafts. That's all you have to do. This is seriously the most no-brain decision to make. Honestly, there's whether you go with Cruz or Langford or Skeens to make John happy. I think that it really is a win-win situation for the Tigers. The Tigers need an outfielder bad. They need a bat. And I think I feel better knowing, again, with Mark Connor being there and his experience in San Diego at the helm, that helps. So I feel good about that. And actually, by the way, George Lombard Jr. is one of my favorite 5, and that's going to be part of our draft talk on Sunday. But yeah, there's a lot of guys I like to that would fit. There's a lot of good hitters in this lineup. Excuse me, a lot of good hitters overall in this draft, and whether it's left-handed or whatever the case is, you can't go wrong at 3. Now at 37, you can debate all you want on whatever direction you want to go. Whether you want to go pitcher, should the Tigers get a high school arm? I think they don't have to. We brought up an example tonight why the Tigers. I'm not worried about their pitching. Tyler Holton, ladies and gentlemen. Tyler Holton was a guy that, as John mentioned earlier, was when he was signed, no one was like, who is that? No one knew who he was. He went in, and he has the best ERA, as Paul mentioned earlier, or Sam mentioned rather earlier, of any rookie pitcher. So to me, that is exactly what the Tigers are doing. Whether the Tigers were able to identify something with him and turn him into a usable pitcher. A guy I even like too is Yohandy Morales, the third baseman out of Miami. 21 years old, he's got some good pedigree to him. You can go either way. I really think that probably I think they'll go college bats heavy, and then I agree with Stan here that I think they will go probably more prep players based off Mark Connor's history. There'll be a lot of players that I think Tiger fans who study this draft stuff or draft how they've drafted is definitely going to be something far different than what we're used to. So maybe guys more like Colt Keith who can hit. So, Chris, you still haven't done your good and bad, the ugly, correct?
No, not yet. Sorry. And just one more thing. I think one thing fans should be wary of is once you get to like the 20th or 25th player on the rankings, there's not a whole lot of difference between that in necessarily like 75, 100. And one of the names that we've seen a lot of smoke around for the Tigers with their second pick is ranked in that 70 range on Pipeline and on Baseball America. But that's also the range that Colt Keith was ranked a couple years ago, right? So just remember that. If they end up spending money on this kid, people might get upset because he's not ranked 37th or whatever. But I think they'll be happy with it.
Who's that?
Trent Carraway.
Oh yeah,
he's a third baseman out of California. Was named the Gatorade Player of the Year in California. Dominated what is considered the hardest high school baseball league in the country. Some teams don't like him because he's old for a high schooler. He's like already 19, will be 20 by the start of next season. But so is Brett Beatty, and I think the Mets are okay with that. And he is a kind of, if things work out, it's a Colt Keith level, 60 hit, 60 power, maybe stick at third base. So anyway, I'm just saying, and who knows if they'll take him or not. I'm just saying that there's been a lot of kind of inferences that's who they've been looking at. So anyway, yeah, my good. And you guys cut in if you already mentioned this stuff, but I had Fernando Tatis Jr. Anybody?
No.
Yeah, which is it's funny because he really had a string of very poor decisions, and that was even before getting busted for performance enhancing drugs and rehabbing and doing all sorts of stuff like that. But in the last month, he's been pretty awesome. He hit 333, 409, 586 with 5 homers and 8 steals. That was a 171 WRC plus while playing elite, borderline elite defense in the outfield. He's a really good player, and it's easy to forget because of all the nonsense. But he didn't. There was some controversy because he didn't get voted in the All-Star game, and people are thinking basically it's kind of his punishment for being a jackass. But still a good player.
But you know what? Real quick about Fernando Tatis Jr. and Uper will appreciate this. There's a guy in fantasy league who keeps asking for him in a trade. He wants to trade me Dansby Swanson for him. No. You know what I'm talking about, Uper. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
This is the
Not
5th
me.
trade proposal. No.
Now, we need to talk about you dealing Logan Webb to me that you steadfastly refuse to do. I've been very,
we
very,
can
very
work on this another time.
Yeah, Uper, there's, look, the bottom line is Uper, at least your trade proposals make a lot of sense. And I honestly, I don't get it,
So much sense you say no.
Yeah. But at least I'll listen to it. At least they're reasonable. You're not offering me garbage for Fernando Tatis Jr. Chris, continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my bad is Jameson Taillon, the starting pitcher for the Cubs. In the offseason, they signed him to a 4-year, $64 million deal. And so far, not looking great. He's got a, what is it? A 6.93 ERA through 63 and 2/3 innings. He's dealt with some injuries, but it's just kind of been a really bizarre year. I was looking at, his strikeout numbers are basically in line with his career, about 8 per 9. His walks are up a little bit. The home runs are up a little bit. One thing that's strange is he's throwing his cutter a lot more this year, and he probably should stop that because batters are hitting 360 and slugging 600 against it. So don't do that. But the one thing that really jumped out to me is that his left on base percentage this year is at 56.2%, which is just about the lowest I've ever seen from a pitcher. Normally it's, average is like 72 to 78%. And Jeremy Bonderman was like infamously in the mid 60s all the time because he had issues with men on base and stuff. But some of it suggests bad luck. But yeah, I wanted to go through and search to see the lowest ever for a qualified pitcher, but then I got sidetracked. But anyway, just something to look at there. It's just a really bad outcome for one of the big, mid-level starting pitchers who signed last year. A lot of those guys haven't turned out great. Taijuan Walker has been struggling in Philadelphia, or at least he was for the first part of the year.
Yeah, actually, Uper was praising him a little earlier.
Well, there you go. Never mind.
It's been picking up.
So in my ugly, it's kind of along your lines, Raj, but it's specifically injuries related to the Dodgers. They've had it, I think, arguably worse than the Tigers this year with the number of pitchers that have gotten hurt, and it's not a huge surprise with some of these guys. Clayton Kershaw just went down, but they just announced that Dustin May is out with the flexor tendon surgery. So far they've lost. They had Walker Buehler's been out for the year, but you lost Dustin May, Clayton Kershaw, Ryman Pepio, Noah Syndergaard. That's just out of the rotation, and then the bullpen has lost another handful of guys, including Shelby Miller and Jimmy Nelson and Alex Reyes and Blake Trinan. And then just today they lost Daniel Hudson for a significant amount of time with a knee injury, re-aggravated the knee that he hurt last year. So they're down like 30 pitchers. But because of the Dodgers, they've managed to they stay afloat because of their awesome farm system. But even a farm system that deep can't help you when it's this many injuries.
You know what? I want to feel sorry for them, but I don't because they have the payroll. I mean, them and the Mets are one of the two teams that are deducted, lost draft positioning because they spent over the tax threshold. But at the same time, it makes for an interesting last couple of months in the NL West. Look at the Diamondbacks. I mean, the Diamondbacks are healthy. They're one of the healthier teams in that division, which has been key. But then the Padres are going around talking smack, but San Diego's not doing anything either. So it is astonishing. What was it? Juan Soto was talking smack to somebody or something.
Oh, was he? I missed that.
Yeah, come on, man.
I really believe if Eduardo Rodriguez has 2 good starts after the All-Star game, if he looks a little bit better than he looked the other night, I think he ends up in that division. I think that's kind of where I've been looking. I think he's a Dodger or a Diamondback.
Yeah, I think the Diamondbacks are good. And another team is the Giants, too. I remember the Tigers played them in April, and they won the series. And the Giants they didn't look like anything special, but they've gone on a nice run here. And they have a lot of offensive depth and have some pretty solid pitching as well. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep up in that division and make a run at the playoffs.
Unfortunately, though, I think the Giants' problem is their bullpen. I think it's going to be taxed before you know it, as it was in June. I still continue to do that, but I think you're right about that. We could definitely see a roller or Erod in that division. You look at the NL Central, I think there's gonna be some small moves made for maybe the Reds and the Brewers, maybe, but I don't see any kind of big moves for them. But it's really, look at the Braves. Braves are right now untouchable. The Braves are sitting at 58-28. And John Smoltz was talking about this, I think, in an article today about how he's comparing the 35-5 Tigers start. He ain't wrong. And that's a tough division, but they're 9-1 over their last 10 games. So
destroying some people. They just took Yuri Perez apart the other day.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, that was the first inning. Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, I think it's for them. It's gotten to the point where it's just World Series or bust every year. They obviously got their World Series in 21, have won the division I think 6 years in a row now. But they're not going anywhere. It looks like Ronald Acuna is just entering the prime of his career. So it looks like they're going to be at the top of that, not even the division, the top of the National League for years to come. And it reminds you of the teams of the 90s where, every year it looks like that's going to be the expectation for them.
I saw a stat today. It just was mind blowing. The guy said, "Oh, look, Ronald Acuna, 6 years into his career, decided to cut his strikeout rate in half." And he has. He's down to like 12%. He used to be around 23.
Yeah, and he's doing, arguably the most amazing power speed combo season of all time. He's headed that way. I've always loved power speed guys. And everybody talks about 40-40, but I loved some of those, like Ricky Henderson and Eric Davis both had 20 home run, 80 steal seasons.
Yeah.
And Davis did it in 130 games. He was always hurt, but it was just bonkers athlete. And another year, I think he went 30-50 in about the same number of games. I'm looking 37 and 50 in 129 games. So that's what Ronald Acuna is doing. Eric Davis in his prime stuff this year might hit 40 home runs and 80 steals, which is just mind blowing. So that's really fun.
Yeah,
I did. Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say that was my pick for MVP. So I didn't get much right. All my predictions I feel like were wrong, but I think I might get that one right.
For sure, all mine are too. I think I had Hayden Wesneski as the NL Rookie of the Year. But I did want to point out that I did look up the record for left on base over the last since 2015. I went and okay, what's the worst any pitcher has been? And yeah, it's a small sample size, but the most in a full season was Joe Musgrove. The lowest was 63.2% in 2019. Then there are three guys this year who are lower qualified: Lance Lynn, Sandy Alcantara, and Jordan Lyles is at 50.3% right now so far this year. If you get on base against Jordan Lyles, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to score, which is ridiculous. So I just thought that was
100% chance you're going to win.
That's right.
Wow. Man, that's bad. That's bad.
He does have one win. He's 1-11. Apparently.
I know the first 14 starts that he started, they lost them all. They've won one since?
Apparently, yeah, and that was super close against. That may have been. Did they beat the Dodgers? I think in a series. I want to say, but he was close to beating the Tigers until they had to pull it out there at the end. But yeah.
By the way, you talk about Eric Davis, former Tiger Eric Davis. Check out the stripes. He was wearing one of the Tigers wore that away jersey with the stripes. That's a rare sighting.
There's an awesome poster too of him in a gun. It was I think because he was 45, was he? And the poster was him with a giant gun with a baseball in it or something. Good for the kids.
I remember he could have been. Might have been the first. He had potential to be the first 50-100 player. That's the kind of steal power he had. 50 home runs, 100 steals.
Yeah.
If he had stayed healthy.
Yeah. Imagine. It's just, yeah. Anyway, when I remember when the Tigers traded for him, I was actually Eric Davis. Oh, Eric Davis. Yeah. So, Joseph, thank you so much for the donation. Much appreciated.
I like keeping it balanced with Torkelson there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Home runs, great. 240.
Yeah, and his comment was, this donation is for you guys and all the great work you. Thank you. And so Larry to hit 50 home runs. Luis, how am I drawing a blank on his last? How you say Arise. Hit 400. I'm thinking of how Matt Shepard says his name. It's kind of weird. And Torque gets to 30 home runs and a 240 average.
Exquisite.
I'll take it.
Yeah. And you know what? And look, and Larry Love says that in the chat, Erod won't get that big haul that everyone is saying. He was a number 3 in Boston, had a very low interest as free agent. Water will find its level. Honestly, I don't know, man. If teams are really that desperate this year.
Well, everybody's a different definition of a haul, right?
It's true.
If they got a prospect just slightly north of Justin Henry Malloy, somebody we rank on that level for 2 months of Erod, I think that's a win. I think that'd be fine. Does that count as a haul? Maybe not in the eyes of some. They're not going to walk away with Jackson Cheerio. Okay, we got that. Cheerios. So that's okay. But I think they can get a useful player.
Yeah, if you can get a guy that can help you win in the future, maybe as a starter, or a guy that can come off the bench and play multiple positions, or some guy who can slot into your rotation, like I think that's like Justin Henry Malloy to me. If you get someone at or above his level, I think a lot of fans would be happy with that.
Oh, John, Scott Harris listening at home, just heard you say multiple position guy, and he just he got a little bit excited. He got a little queasy. He's so happy.
It wouldn't surprise me.
In a perfect
Speaking
world.
of,
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
I was just speaking of multiple positions, and then I was going to ask John about the date, but we're going to go back to what you were saying.
Who? Wrong. All right, man. All right. You know what? That was actually
Humorous. Quite humorous. Yeah.
That's more appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but you know what?
Look, for my level here.
There's in a perfect scenario, which will never happen. The Reds ask for Erod in exchange. The Reds give us. I don't like to say that. Give the Tigers Novella Marte.
Noelvi?
Yeah. Yeah. That would be great, but that's not gonna happen. The guy is soaring through the minor leagues this year. He's made really good adjustments in Double-A. That's a guy I've been watching here for a while. We got a chance to watch him this week, and that Louisville lineup that's a tough lineup for Triple-A. Although you kind of wonder what's going to happen at some point. I know that I feel bad for Haase, their shortstop, who has been every time he gets to call up the Cuban,
Barrera.
Yeah, just cannot hit to save his life. So, but they have Cam Collier too. They have an embarrassment of riches down there. So yeah, I know Marte would be awesome, but
I think you'd have to go at least Erod and Foley, right?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think they'd even do that, honestly.
Probably not.
Somebody brought up an interesting scenario on Twitter yesterday. It was my league report on trading. I think it was like Foley and 4 other guys for the Yankees.
That was that was a bit much. That was it was like Erod, Skubal, Foley, and it was for like Jason Dominguez and Roderick Arias. And Jason Dominguez is like okay, he's a 20-year-old in Double-A, but he's not even. I think he's barely hitting 200. He's got power and speed, but he's not. It's not exactly a sure thing yet. And Roderick Arias is in the complex league. It was an absurd trade. I joked that the Tigers or like Major League Baseball might not even allow it. It's like a Cleveland Spiders level, donating your best players to the St. Louis Perfectos deal.
So Stan posted a really interesting comment that I'm kind of miffed by. Dan Durkett of the MLB Radio wrote an article in the Athletic listing his top 15 hitters in the Legends game this year. Lowe's listed number 14, Futures game rather, and Colt Keith wasn't even listed. What?
Listen, I think, given that, I don't think Colt Keith is still terribly well known among national. I mean, he's climbed up in a lot of prospect rankings, but I don't think Dan Duquette he probably saw him in the Arizona Fall League or something like that, or if at all, and doesn't think much of it. I'll say this, that the on an MLB pipeline, they have this annual thing where they have a contest they draft a team of 4 players to see who ends up with the most home runs in the home run derby. In the it's Team Callis and Team Mayo, and I think Mayo took Keith 3rd overall. So they know a little bit about what kind of power he has, and Dan Duquette, whatever. He used to be a GM. He's not a GM anymore. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the same guy who never spent internationally with Baltimore in his last years in Baltimore. I mean, he did some things in Montreal, but that's in Boston too. But I don't. Dan. Okay. All right, Dan. Parker Meadows, and it's Sam mentions why is he not in the MLB top 100? That's a very good question. Maybe because the fact of him not able to hit lefties before, but that's not the case this year. I don't know. I mean, that's another one, but taking away our Detroit bias for a moment, Parker Meadows, I think, deserves at least to be at least in the lower end of that. There's some players in there that I'm just kind of like, I don't know, like just it's doing disservice a little bit, but yeah, either way.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, I think it's partially because he was just kind of completely off the radar for like 2 years. Just not really. I mean, he was a high-ranking draft pick. They spent a decent amount of money, and he didn't do much for maybe 3 years, actually, honestly.
Yeah.
And despite like he's really a pretty well-rounded player, but it's not like the sort of explosive performance that you see from guys who shoot their way back onto a top 100 list. We moved him all the way up to number 2, I think, in our last update because we think that even if he's a well below average hitter, he's probably going to play above average defense, possibly in center field, and give you some power and some speed. And so it's a pretty high floor now, we think. Maybe he will eventually get some top 100 consideration, but I don't know. I mean, he puts up pretty gaudy exit velocities when he connects. He does have a good arm. Like, there's a lot of tools there. It's just I think he needs to get that batting average up over 260 or whatever in AAA for people to take notice.
Look, I will trade. I don't care. Like, to me, ultimately, is this. I don't care if he makes the top 100 list. If he can come up and make an impact on the Tigers, that's all I want. I mean, really, honestly, that's just, to me, having some players there that can come up and make a difference. That's all I want. I at this point, rankings to me don't mean crap. I mean, we have Cole Keefe as number 1 on our prospect list, and we do rankings. And yes, does it sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth? No, I just think that right now, what all that matters is if the Tigers can get at least a full season of somebody hitting over 270 or hitting 20 or 30 home runs from a homegrown player. That is not too much to ask. That is the bare minimum. The bare minimum.
Yeah,
That's what I want from a position player.
I think we already have that in Riley Green.
Well, he hasn't done that yet in a full season. I'm saying, like, it's again, we'll see what happens at the end of the year with in terms of Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green where they're at. Now, if they can, Riley Green was off to that good start. He could have probably made the All-Star game if he was continuing on his path. But for Christ's sake, folks, I'm sorry to take the Lord's name in vain. I'm sorry for any religious folks out there. Just give me one damn player that is at least 2 WAR. That's all I ask. I think Tiger fans should, for all the complaining that people say that Tiger fans do, I don't think I think Tiger fans have every right to complain about getting something from their farm system. You have the right. When I was doing that video earlier, the intro video, I was talking to Chris about this earlier. It was hard to pull players that done well in the draft. I mean, I was able to pull Lance Parrish, Jack Morris, Dan Petrie. I didn't pull Dan Petrie. I should have pulled Peaches. Kirk Gibson, Brandon Inge, Curtis Granderson I also put in there. But again, depending on how long you think he was a Tiger, it's it is slim pickings. So we did get some questions in here. We'll start with Noah. How do you guys feel about Justice Bigby? Chris, he's been put on. I don't know. He's making a case to be known. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting kind of hard to justify or to not put him on like a top 30 at least. He's a guy, he's a 19th round draft pick, didn't make a whole lot of noise, started hitting this year in West Michigan to a decent degree. And okay, he's 24-year-old in high A. You should be doing that theoretically. But he's gone up. He's been up to Double A for 20 games now. Hit his third home run with them today. He has 9 doubles, I think, already. He just struck out for the 9th or 10th time today, has 8 walks. He's basically doing everything you could possibly want. Its average is close to 375, 380. I haven't checked since the end of the game. He's playing solid outfield defense in the corners. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that Kerry Carpenter sneaking up on your path, other than he's hitting more doubles than hitting home runs over the wall. And I think that will probably continue until he starts pulling the ball a bit more. But I'm not going to complain about him hitting. He consistently hits the ball hard to the opposite field, doubles all the time into the right corner, right field corner, or right center. So yeah, it's tough with guys like this because you always default to, well, why did he go so late? Why have they been slow playing him? What's the deal? But at a certain point, you just have to look to the production and say, all right, well, yeah, I mean, this guy, what else does he have to prove? So yeah, I think Tigers fans should be, I don't know, excited about him, but certainly, keep your ears up for what he does.
Yeah, he's got an ISO over 200, which is really good in Double A. That's always a standout. That's something that across the board, if you're going to put as a player who could potentially hit the major leagues, and you have your strikeout rate under control, which he does, it's at 11% right now.
Yeah, walk rate's fine.
Yeah, walk rate's in double digits at 10%.
controlling the zone and hitting for power. That's all you can ask for. That's the sort of player that you want the Tigers to fill their system with. And part of the issue, I think, is he is a corner only guy. He's not going to play center field, but he does have experience playing first base too. So if you can play first base, left field, right field, there might be enough versatility there that you don't have to hit like 25 bombs. But I think the raw power is there to do that. I think he just needs, to turn on a few more balls.
So Omar Rivera asked about how you feel about Chris Myers, and we talked about this. First and foremost, we're on a Reddit thread. Thank you, shout out to Cameron for setting that up and getting us going on that. It was really, really swell of him to do. Myers, if he can cut down his strikeouts a little bit, I think he could have potential. He has lost some weight, and he moved over in the outfield, and he's adjusted not too badly there. But I think he has to hit with a little more power in order to get a shot. The numbers right now indicate that it's kind of like he was killing West Michigan pitching, but right now I don't see it at this point. But the fact he's a left-handed stick, there is potential. Like I said, there's times where you do see him hit for opposite field power, but it's not consistent enough as of yet.
Yeah, what we've seen from him so far, he got off to a pretty hot start in AA too. But what has happened since then is what I expected to happen to him and to Big B and Ben Malgeri and everybody who comes up to AA. The cooling off period, and pitchers have really gotten him a lot with breaking balls and changeups low, and he needs to adjust. But I do think the Tigers really like his power potential. Like, he does have legit big time power. And to Roger's point, he got in better shape. He looks a lot more muscular now. He's playing some corner outfield. I think he's probably primarily a first baseman. But yeah, he needs to tap into that power. I kind of compared him at this point to like a Josh Lester, where that's just I'm thinking he might just be an upper minors power guy. But who knows? We need to see him make that adjustment against AA pitching. From there, we'll see.
Yeah, it's good to see though the Tigers at least get some interesting guys in the later rounds. Even with Ben Malgeri, who Tiger minor league interview series regular and has done pretty well.
TMLR bump.
Yeah, TMLR. Yeah.
I was thinking about like all the guys we've had on, they've all done pretty well, with the exception of maybe Josh Crouch. But Josh Crouch did talk about his good friend Dylan Cruz on our podcast, and wouldn't you know it? And at the time, I'm like, oh well, there's no chance he's going to be the team, but maybe you can make that happen. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it us? Is it us? I think so.
Yeah. You know what? We don't brag very often, but you know what? There we go. We'll take that. We'll take that. Oh, but at any rate, I think that were there any questions we got on Twitter tonight, or we?
We did have one from Deadly Ninja Bees. If you wanted to end the show with that.
Okay.
All right. So he asked, which lineup is more exciting to watch, the Tigers or the Mudhens? I think that's one of his snarky comments he likes to make. I mean, the Mudhens are pretty interesting right now with Riley Green and Kill Badu down there. Obviously, Cole Keith as well. So I don't know. Which would you rather watch, the Mudhens or the Tigers?
So, you know what? Until recently, I would have said the Tigers, and I will stick with it. But Toledo, there's most nights where I feel bad. Like sometimes Chris and I will take turns on Toledo. I usually watch the games, and Chris will clip them. Watching Toledo was awful. It was awful until Cole Keith arrived, because our offense, since he has arrived, they batted .230 in the month of May, and they batted .250 in the month of June. I like to think that 1 week that they had Cole Keith, that made it jump up, and they're off to a 289, 290 start right now in the month of July. Their offense, for all the good things Parker Meadows was doing, the rest of the offense was just crap. So,
So in general, I tend to enjoy watching the minors more than the majors anyway, just because it's that seeing these young guys figure things out. But yeah, lately Toledo, you touched on it, John. They've had their lineup out there. It'll be Akil Baddoo, Riley Green, Colt Keith, Justin Malloy, Parker Meadows, and then you throw in Andre Lipsius even, and you're like, wow, this is pretty fun to watch. Now, a lot of those guys, well, not a lot of them, but Green and Baddoo are going to be gone soon enough. And that's the one thing that I like to point out is, you see what Riley Green did. Okay, he went 5 for 5 yesterday, hit a monster bomb today. That's what big leaguers do in AAA. That's what big leaguers do to AAA pitching. I pointed it out. Nick Maton is hitting like 360 or he was until today against AAA pitching. There's such an enormous gap. Big leaguers go down and do what JD Martinez did. And so it's exciting when these guys are performing in AAA, but you got to remember that it's nowhere close to the level of talent that you see in the big leagues. And the one other example I used is Victor Reyes is a career 320 hitter in AAA with a 900 OPS. And you remember what he looked like in the majors, right? Like, now that's not the case for everybody. Some guys just hit everywhere. Hitters hit, right? But just a reminder that just because Malloy has been doing well in AAA, he's not necessarily ready for the majors. As much as people don't want to hear that, and people keep clowning about, Scott Harris is saying that he wants these guys to play different positions. They do still need to do that. I talked about it today. Parker Meadows is primarily a center fielder. He hasn't played a ton of left field in pro ball, and he's not very good at it because he hasn't played it a ton. You'd think that center fielder can just go to right field or left field easily enough, but the ball comes off the bat a lot differently in the corners than it does in center field, and these guys have to learn that. So, people like to joke about, like, oh, he's learning shortstop or learning catcher, but he's probably not going to play center field every day in Detroit when he comes up because they still like Riley Green there. So he's got to learn left field a little bit more too.
Did you have a answer to that question?
Well, I think just going beyond that, last night I was reading some things about Scott Harris not being in touch with his fan base, and my opinion is why should he be? I think everybody wants those guys called up to the majors. Okay, not everybody, but a lot of people do, and I get it. And he's never going to win in the court of public opinion there steadily by because his big league club can't hit, and you have some guys in the minors who might hit. So people want him up, the bring him up brigade is out there, but he shouldn't care. He should not care. Yeah.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
I bring him up brigade. I made it anagram in my head.
Okay.
To be up, and it sounded like you. I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. So, he is where was I there?
Acronym.
He should not care about what the public thinks. He needs to work his plan and do it his way, because the old saying is, if you start listening to the fans, pretty soon you'll be out there sitting with them, right? That's no way to success. He has to have a plan. His plan, whether you agreed with it or not, when he was on TV yesterday with Shepard and Monroe, at least it sounded plausible. It sounded like a reasonable plan of why he wants them to see the pitch sequencing in AAA and conquer it. And then when they are ready to come up, they're ready to stay. Made perfect sense. At least he was the one telling the story, but it wasn't necessarily the fan story. It was Scott Harris's story of what he sees for these players and why they're not in Detroit yet.
Yeah. And the next part of the question was, it's kind of a add-on to that, is where would Colt Keith go in this year's MLB draft? I thought that was kind of a fun one.
Wow, that's a tough question.
So if he had gone to Arizona, right?
Yeah, Arizona State, I think he was going.
Okay, yeah. Arizona State. He went to Arizona State and he had a good career, right? He hit 356 this year and hit 19 bombs and looked good. Where is he in this draft?
Yeah, I mean, I assume I assume that he would destroy college baseball based on what he's doing to professional baseball. He's in AAA already at the age. It's funny, we talked about before. You can go back and look at video of him pitching from that All-Star era, striking out Enrique Bradfield, who is going to be a first-round draft pick, striking out Dylan Cruz, and getting Kevin Parada, I think, to ground out. And so it's just funny to think of him as that in that same group. He's a little bit older than Dylan Cruz or whatever, but he would be destroying college baseball, and he would probably be a top 15 pick, I would think. There'd probably be some defensive questions there. I'm sure he'd be playing a fine third base in college, but I think he might be the first third baseman off the board.
Yeah, I think so too. I think maybe late first round or early second round, maybe. I don't know. Like I think that the glove would be highlighted more. I think, but he'd definitely go in the first 50 picks. He'd be gone. And again, shout out to the Arizona scout who found him. Really, or it was, I know it was a West Coast checker, I believe it was, wasn't it, Chris?
With Cole Keith?
Yeah.
I don't know. He was in the Mississippi high school there at the end. I don't know if it was but he did live in Arizona for a while, lived in Utah, I think. He lived in Ohio. They moved all over the place. I don't remember who he said it was that contacted him, but yeah, that was a fun story as we come up on draft time about sometimes you just kind of get lucky. A lot of these kids, he will set these high numbers for their bonus without actually wanting to go to school at all. Cole Keith did not want to go to school, and nobody but his bonus, and so he reluctantly accepted the $500,000 from the Tigers. And in the end, it's probably going to pay off for him because he'll get him to the majors quicker, and he'll get that contract or whatever. Or he'll get the $700,000 minimum salary. But yeah, some of these kids, if you're going to threaten to go to school, you better be willing to go to school, or else you're going to end up with less money than you wanted.
Yeah, that was the thing about the interview with Cole Keith was like it was kind of refreshing in the sense that he was just like it's just transparent. I mean, like, it was one of those things where I quickly picked up like on the fact that like, oh yeah, this guy, what you see is what you get with him. I mean, he was just the determination, the focus, and then you're hearing that too. It just we've heard from other people as well. It's just like tunnel vision.
Yeah, he was a confident, driven young man who wants to be great at baseball, and there's nothing wrong with that. And he's doing a good job so far.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So on that note, we are going to be out of here because we're going to have a lot of programming this weekend. So I shared the YouTube link in our chat, and I'll be sharing it for our on our show notes. So there's going to be 2 links to share. So Sunday starting at 6 p.m., Uper and John will be on the Motor City Metrics YouTube channel here, and they'll be doing a first half show. We might peep in, but I'll be probably running around like a maniac, making sure that everything in our Tiger Minor League Report studio north, was it north or west? No, west. So Chris, so right there where you see Chris right now is where I'll be, and I'll be hauling all the equipment and everything. So that our Tiger Minor League Report the draft show will be on the Minor League Report channel starting at 7 p.m. So there's 2 distinctive links. So from 6 till probably 10 p.m. all the baseball you want, all of it, every single thing of baseball.
Get some food.
Yeah.
Come join us for a while. Go away, do your thing, come back. We'll still be there.
Yeah.
Or stay the whole time.
Yeah, stay the whole time because I know. Look, we got the reason why I brought in the heavy hitters like Trevor Huth, Scott Bentley, and Ray's White is those guys can carry the show. So at one point, I know for a fact that I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown because I got to me, all the audio equipment's important. So where John steps in, John's gonna be handling the chat. So we're gonna be back and forth with that. There's gonna be some video. We're gonna have graphics. It's gonna be fun, and we're also. I just wanted to show too. So this is gonna be cool. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Because if you're wondering if we're gonna have a draft tracker, hell yeah, we're gonna have a damn draft tracker. Look at that. We're gonna have a draft tracker. So as it's updated, we're gonna have the picks going right there on the bottom. So we're gonna have a draft tracker. We're gonna be a professional, as much as I can, as this is like, so but yeah, I'm really soaked. So come join us Sunday, starting at 6 p.m. here in Motor City Metrics, and then come over to the Tiger Minor League Report for live coverage of the MLB draft. We'll be through the first round of the draft. We'll be, like I said, we'll be sticking around for a little while. There'll be breaks. Like I said, I might be one like the James Brown thing where they put a jacket over me afterwards, and we're gonna all like. And also, don't forget the splash of the draft. So I'll be in my swim trunks.
Whoa!
If there's gonna be this happens again, and I will jump in Chris's pool if there's gonna be some absurd pick. So if
Kyle Teal.
Kyle Teal, I expect it, but if Skeens goes to the Tigers at 3, look, see that Lucha Libre mask behind me? I will wear that into the pool, and I will swear in Spanish the entire time.
It probably would have been the Kumar Rocker pick last year, right? At 3, except we were doing it from the studio, so there was no splashing. But 2 years ago, was Heston Kierstad, or that was 3 years ago? 2 years ago, I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, it was Heston Kierstad. Because we didn't expect that at all.
And
this belly's gonna hurt. I'm ready. I'm ready for pain. I'm ready for some pain. But it has to be an overwhelming. You guys have to all. It has to be in a chat, or somebody has to say, "Okay, that pick was not expected." So, for example, if Dylan Cruz goes number 1, I don't want no shock value on that because that was, But then,
now, what if Walker Jenkins goes number 1? That's the one name that nobody has mentioned.
Okay, so So if Jenkins goes number 1, then I will do that, and I'll wear a clown or whatever. I don't care. Or somebody could throw something at me while I'm going to the pool because it's such a dumb idea for them to go over that. Job over my. You know what? Didn't we put myself in the pool when Job went in there?
It's very possible. I don't remember exactly. I think we were, busy live, commenting on that, but that probably would have, I think, qualified.
Yeah.
But even, you know what? Henry Davis going first overall was kind of a shock too. Although there were whispers, but it wasn't confirmed until 5 minutes before the draft. There's going to be a shock. There'll be a shock this year in the top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
Well, when the Tigers take Tommy White, we'll get you out
there. No, there is video. There is a pool. I think we put it on I think I put on Twitter a couple weeks back of me jumping into the pool when it happened. So it was Job. It was Job. Yes, I did go in the pool.
Gotcha.
So if anybody remembers that specifically, kudos to you. So on that note, thank you so much. We'll see you Sunday starting at 6 p.m. Have a great week, everybody. The Tigers kick off a 3-game series with Toronto, and the pitching matchups go as follows: Faedo tomorrow, Manning on Saturday, and Tarek Skubal will end the first half of the season on Sunday. We'll talk to Sunday. Have a great week, everybody.